Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Assessors, open at 6:12, please. And we are being taped by the West Bridgewater Community TV.
And member and clerk Cheryl Smith is on the telephone. She is telecommunicating and participating in this meeting. I have been advised by the town administrator that all votes must be roll call votes because of the telephonic nature of the meeting.
Very good.
So your appointment is here, Mr. David Gagne, the town administrator, to discuss the notice of the vacancy on the Board of Assessors.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and John and Ms. Bunker, thank you very much for letting me be here. I came here because I've been receiving some conflicting information. We know that Donna, unfortunately, has decided to retire, and there's some nuances with her position because she is a clerical employee. Clerical employee under the collective bargaining agreement, which falls under the Board of Selectmen. But she is also falls under the jurisdiction of an elected board with the Board of Assessors. So there's some nuance there. So I want to make sure that we all understand what that is.
Okay.
And be able to clarify anything.
Appreciate that.
Want to make sure we know what the hiring process is, and the other issue with that is that where her pay rate sits in versus where you may potentially want to put a person coming in. And the last item to that is I've had a conversation with John. I'm officially on record with John. I'm officially on record with my board, and I'm officially on record with anybody else who has discussed this matter with me that I believe it should be a full-time position. And obviously it's a part-time position. However, you don't have funding for a full-time position at this point. So again, that creates another nuance because if you go out to try to advertise for it now, you have some minefields that you have to wash
Sure.
out. So with all of that said, I thought that it would be helpful representing the Board of Selectmen to be here just to be able to answer some questions and just to give a pretty brief layout. And again, I want to clarify one item. I've been led to believe by a handful of people that there is an expectation that whoever gets hired for this position, that they automatically slide into Donna Carter's compensation schedule or classification sheet. That is not true. She is the head administrative secretary, and that is because she's been here for as long as she has, and she's extremely proficient at her job. So just because her position is vacant doesn't mean that if somebody applies for the job, they get that rate of pay and that classification. You will have to decide as to where you want to bring that person in through the slide, and you guys know the qualifications you're looking for. But Tammy is currently at principal clerk, which is the third tier. And based on her experience, and if you bring somebody in with similar experience, my guess is you would probably bring in somebody at about the same level.
Sorry for interrupting. Are the pay scales with a job title or like with bumps and based on the raises for the union and stuff?
Yep. So if you want to do this, Mr. Chairman, the last page of this packet that I just handed to you.
Yeah.
You will see. I think I highlighted yours.
Yeah.
You will see that Tammy right now, under July 1, 2018, see that column? Mm-hmm. Tammy right now is at step 5, so her rate of hourly pay is $24.90. Donna's current rate of pay is down at head administrative secretary number 8 at $32.08. And that is because obviously her longevity and the proficiency she has in her job. So most likely, you brought Tammy in, quite frankly, at a little bit of a higher level than you normally would, because in order to get to step 5, you have to be here for 5 years. Each step represents a year. She's always only been here for a year. So you already brought her in at a high step, which is A-okay. No worries with that. My only point is that I want everybody to understand that is vastly different than head administrative secretary at the rate of pay that Donna was at. Yeah. Now, if you found somebody working in a different town that has 15 years of experience and all that, you could bring that person in at a higher rate. However, the union contract is clear that you cannot bring them in at a higher rate than step 5. Can't do it, reclassification. So if you said, hey, this person would qualify for head administrative secretary based on years of experience and knowledge of the job, you cannot bring them in higher than step 5. And also, to be clear, and I have a copy of the union contract, is that only the Board of Selectmen makes that final decision because they oversee the collective bargaining agreement.
Sure.
So my recommendation to John is to probably take a range in here of $4, $5, $6, and then put the posting out. And when you put the posting out, then depending on where somebody comes in, and quite frankly, if you find someone that's better than what the posted range is, that person will never be disappointed.
Right.
Right? So
On that range, it'd be up to a step 5, like with any title here?
yeah, so my recommendation would probably be, look at principal clerk, and if they're starting on July 1, in theory, that rate of pay is just under $21 an hour up to $25.52. But if you thought you might be able to find somebody that might qualify for, say, head secretary, then you might want to do the pay range of 5 steps within that. But whatever reasonably you want to do, you can, but you cannot go above step 5.
So the question is, if you're saying like within the job title, how do we really, if you're advertising, how do we know until the person comes in to speak with us, are they in line for the head secretary or for the, principal secretary, or what position would they be in line for? Because there's different ranges for different.
I agree. So you could do this. You could post the following range. You could post the range, assuming it was going to be a July 1 start date. You would post a range in theory of $20.99 up to $28.96.
Right.
You could do that.
Yeah.
All right. Did you follow that, Paula?
Yes.
All right. And John, did you follow that?
Yes.
So you could do that. That's a wide range. It
Yeah.
gives you all the latitude in the world. And then
That's good. Yeah.
And then that person coming in probably is going to say, "I'm worth the higher end," and then you have to make that decision.
With that range, you're sure to get some better applicants,
Yeah.
I would think. Just a quick question. I didn't realize this. In the head administrative secretary or any of these things, these aren't aligned with part-time or full-time. That's the rate. So whether Donna was 20, 25, or 40 hours a week, that would have been her rate of pay.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's number one. I want to make sure that we know what the range is and that somebody does not automatically qualify for head administrative secretary, nor do they automatically qualify for the highest rate. All right? It's going to be depending on their qualifications.
Sure.
And because the process will be, go ahead, John.
Cheryl, I know that you don't have a chart in front of you. Are you following everything okay?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot you was
No.
there. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I am.
Yeah.
I understand it.
Okay. The second thing is that the process. I sent John an email on January 3rd, and I outlined the process to him. At the end of the day, what the process really is I don't know if it's part of the packet or not.
No.
It's not. Okay, I can get you guys a copy. John, do you know if you shared it with them or not?
Which one did it?
The email on the process?
No.
No,
I
okay.
did not.
All right, so just very simple. The process is as follows, is that when you do decide to post, is that John should be the one initially to receive all the applications, because he's the department head.
Sure.
All right. In the future, as we get Linda up to speed as HR director, I really think it should be that person,
Sure.
because John already has a full-time job.
Right.
However, in the short term, we've had department heads take the initial vetting. So if he posted out on, say, an assessor's website, he'll probably get 5, 6, 7 applicants. If he posted also on something like Indeed, which I would recommend, he's probably going to get 150 to 200 applicants. Because it's going to bring in somebody that might be a starting accountant somewhere.
And we don't, on the posting, from the old days in Brockton, we're not obligated to post it everywhere we can.
Nope.
Like, for example, I think a good posting would be the clerks must have, like the assessors have a website and an organization behind us, where you see a lot of assessing jobs. So maybe the clerks have a similar, organization where they have a magazine or a website that you can post job offerings, for municipal clerical people, so you might get somebody in that direction.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I do, there's obviously a state one in reference to assessors, so you may want to post it there. The only one technical requirement is that it must be posted here at the town hall.
Right, yeah.
Because it's a union position, and
Right.
that's part of the union collective bargaining agreement. So once the job is posted, John's going to receive in, hopefully, a couple hundred applicants, hopefully not 1,000, but you'll probably receive in 150 to 200, depending on exactly where you put it. John should then, at that point, weed it down to somewhere around 25 to maybe 30 applicants, because a lot of them are just not going to be qualified, or they're going to give you the bare basic information, because you're just shotgunning 15 jobs. They don't even know they applied. So you weed it down to around 30, and then there is a screening committee that should be created, and it should be 3 people. And my understanding is that John will be on it. This is part of what the selectmen voted
Yeah.
upon. John's on it. Linda is on it as the assistant town administrator, and a third person, and speaking to John, I understand that you would volunteer for it.
Correct.
So it would be the 3 of you that would then screen from 25 people down to about 10 to 12 that would then conduct interviews. Out of those 10 to 12 people that you conduct interviews, you bring it down to 3, and those 3 are then provided to me. I then do a second interview at that point, and then make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. Obviously, I discuss it with you members, so I know exactly what everybody's thinking,
Sure.
and you should provide a recommendation to me at that point as well.
Are you open for questions right now on that?
For sure.
What I'm concerned with is the time frame in this, because obviously, if you said we can't hire till April 15th, that wouldn't be a problem. But John and I, we'd want to discuss it, but we'd like it, sooner than later.
Yep.
And I know it's gonna, what you just said with the process of, posting, weeding out the applicants down to 25, then the interviews, et cetera. It sounds to me like that's a month-long type of deal.
It is, and that's why I sent it out on January 3rd. So
Yeah.
you guys, I don't know when you want to start the process, but I want to
Soon.
get, So the caveat to all of that is this, is I think, John, you and I are in agreement that we'd like to see it be a full-time person. And my understanding is that the board is split on that issue. If I'm wrong, please let me know. And maybe
I
it
called
doesn't
each
matter.
member individually, and
Is
2 are in
difference about
favor
the-
and 1 is not sold on the idea yet. Is that a fair characterization?
I'm not in favor of it at this point in time.
Okay, so even with a majority vote to be in favor of it being a full-time position, you don't have the funding. Even if you had a 2-to-1 vote as a full-time person, you don't have the funding because of what happened at last year's meeting. You already had your budget cut. And then on top of that, Donna was only funded at part-time.
Right,
So
yeah.
if you go to a full-time person, you don't actually have the money in the budget. So again, that's another nuance. If you want to look for a full-time person and get them started, say, on April 1st, then you're not going to have necessarily the money in the budget, except that because you are not paying Donna
Right.
for a month and a half or 2 months, you could utilize those funds.
And the pay grade will drop down by $14,
It won't be
$13.
full-
35 to, what is she now? 32.
She's 32.
So drop down by, maybe 10.
Could-
Yeah, yeah.
it could.
Yeah.
And, Tammy is $8 less,
Yeah.
so that's correct.
Yeah.
So you do have a funding mechanism if you use Donna's line. But again, that nuance is that if you post for a full-time position, you need to, my understanding from talking to John about the budget, which I know you guys will go over after I leave, is that you're gonna be trying to fund it at town meeting for a full-time person. So if you apply, if you put a posting out for April, somebody takes the job, and you don't get funding for it in June, then on July 1, you get our funding problem.
Well-
So you have to make a decision as to how you
Can-
want to approach that.
I already thought, I was thinking about that too, based on your earlier talk, that couldn't we advertise, right up front that it's only part-time until, at the earliest, July 1st with town meeting approval? And if we don't get the funding, it might remain that. So in other words, the applicant sitting down would know that, there's a chance that it might not be full-time, for a little while.
Yep. There's absolutely nothing, no reason why you can't.
Just
do
that you
that.
might lose some good applicants on that, that's all.
Exactly. That's your only negative is the fact that, Steve, you're an established guy.
Yeah.
You're good at what you do. So if you were looking for a job and it said, hey, we're going to hire you a part-time with a chance it might go full-time, you might not even apply.
Right.
So that's the only negative.
Yeah.
Other than that, everything that you said is entirely legit. So it's a matter of however the board wants to proceed.
What do you, your guess would be better than mine if we kept it part-time until we received that funding for July 1. What are the chances, I think, at town meeting of, if we present it the right way, of getting that, full-time funding?
I'm biased because I think it should be full-time.
I think it should be, full-time with another part-time gal, or, I think it should be 2.5 people in there, truthfully.
So, but I do think that unfortunately, and this is, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, unfortunately, there is already a town meeting bias against this budget based on what we saw last year. And so I think that we're going to then have multiple battles at that point, and that's what my concern is.
Right.
And so I'm not trying to take a position on that because I mean, I want John to be full-time. I've said that from the beginning. I think this position should be full-time.
Positively.
But we know where town meeting has stood on this issue. And as a result, I think that you're swimming uphill no matter what we do. And so I'm fearful that you put the position out there as full-time now and not get it funded. I'm fearful that if you put it out as part-time, with the chances it could go full-time, and you don't get enough applicants. And I also don't think that you can continue to go 4 more months without another person.
No, it's gotta
So-
be, yeah, we gotta get
So
something.
that's why I say this is nuanced.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is to probably post for it to be part-time and hope for the best that you get a really good candidate, and explain to that person that there's an opportunity to potentially go full-time in the posting and in person. Just understanding that you may not get the best pool of applicants at that point.
For the record, that would be my recommendation also.
And we could say in the job recs, we could say that it's part-time with a chance of going full-time in the near future.
Sure. You know, because I mean, look, we all know how government works. Is the fact that even if it doesn't pass this time, and if you try, it might take 3 years, you know, but sooner or later, look, the town is growing, and we have not added staff throughout most of the town, and that is going to have to change.
Positively.
Town meeting is going to have to determine, though, as to where those changes happen, because we can't fund everything on our wish list. So, you know, I don't get to vote on that one, so everybody else does. All I can do is give you a professional opinion on it.
Yeah.
Have we covered all of the steps on?
I think so.
Schedule, okay.
Just one question, David. How long does the job have to be posted for?
So according to the contract, it has to be posted a minimum of 10 days for union employees.
In the town hall, yeah.
Correct.
Minimum.
So it should run commensurate with each other. So I have told John, I think you need to post for at least 30 days. You don't have to, there's no law or requirement for that 30. But this is the reason why, is that I can tell you, because I speak to my counterparts all the time, is that if you see a posting on MMA for a town administrator job or some other management job, and it says posting on February 3rd and closes on February 14th, no legitimate person can get everything together and put it together and do it within 11 days, and that's assuming that you saw on day one. They're not looking for someone. This is just dressing. They've already got their internal candidate. They're just trying to prove to the world they made a posting. We all know the unwritten rule is anything below 30 days, don't apply because they've already got their person. If it's 30 days or more, then that's a legitimate job posting. So that's why my advice is 30 days. But there's no legal requirement. There is no expectation that it has to be more than 10 days.
I'd say we'd cut that in half, make it 14 days.
But even if we left it up for 30 days, if we get a bunch in initially, we can still just start going through them, because there's going to be some that John's going to look at right off the top and go, oh no, this is never going to apply.
Look at
You can start weeding them out even if you leave it up to the full 30 versus 14.
Yep. The other option that you can do is not actually have an end date. So what you could say is that priority is going to be given to those who provide their information by, it's say 14 days. So if you post on February 3rd, 14 days is February 17th. So you say priority will be given to those that present the information prior to February 17th. The position will remain open until filled, and the town reserves the right to make the hiring decision whenever it sees fit. But in no case will it do it before February 17th. That way you're consistent with the union contract, you get your 14 days in, but we also keep it open in case a good applicant comes in at a later date.
I'm glad you said about that. I didn't really realize that about, when you make it 30 days or such, it seems like a realistic job that's not taken. Because I've sat down the street there in the dog and pony show advertising, bring 8 guys or 8 people in for a job in the office, and we already have somebody hired, just that we had to go through the.
Correct.
Yeah, and that wasn't good.
So again, in this business, everybody understands that. So I do have a 6:30 meeting to get to. I'll answer do you have any other questions that?
I'll sit there right now, yeah.
No, I think I'm good.
Reach out to me if you.
I'll be able to
need
see
me.
it, yeah.
And good luck. And again, I know that this is not an easy situation for anyone. It's not an easy situation for John because he's lost a pretty good person in the office.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a good situation for residents because residents are going to be coming in and Tammy can only do so much.
Yeah.
So
that's why I want to go, the 14 over, however we do it, to try to get it filled with the best person as soon as possible. If it takes longer, that's fine. but it's a busy time of the season. It seems like it's always busy time, but
So included in the packet is a recommended part-time senior clerk, mostly filled out. The board would fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And then there's a job description that would go with that.
So we create the posting, and we create, John and Linda worked on it.
and is this posted just in the hall, or is it in all the spots like the library?
We've posted all the spots.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you coming down. and doing
Thank you
that.
so much, David.
It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
So
Cheryl, is still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, you didn't fall asleep on us, did you? No?
No, but
Okay.
So with that, I would just like to expand this discussion into your budget discussion also.
Okay.
And I gave you copies of a draft. These are the numbers that I've plugged into your department request for fiscal 20. Cheryl, you don't have a copy of this. Would you like me to read everything?
I'm sorry, what?
Would you like me to read everything that's on my budget proposal? Why don't I do that? Why don't I do that? I'll take it line by line.
Okay.
So for elected officials, $10,539, which is the same as last year,
The year before.
the same as the year before, and the year before that. If the board wants me to make a different recommendation, I will do that. But for the sake of tonight's presentation, I plugged in the same number. Under appointed official, which is me, it's $85,000, which is a $3,000 increase over my contractual salary from last year. The clerical salaries, I've plugged in $92,822. Now, David probably would have explained this to you too, because we had a discussion about this, but obviously he didn't have any time left. If you see what I put for your edification, Cheryl, and the board members can see, in the comment section, Tammy's increase for fiscal 2020, according to the wage schedule that was presented earlier, is $46,822.02. What David and I discussed and what I've plugged in for the other position is $25 per hour, which puts you in that range of 20 to 20.
For the part-time position?
For the part-time, which would,
What are the hours
which
in
would
that?
be the
20
full-time position for the budget purposes.
Right. On the part-time, just drawing back for a second, is that for 20, 25 hours? I think Donna was 25 hours maybe.
Donna's 25, so I would.
I'm just curious.
I would say
Yeah.
that's also an open-ended issue based on the applicants. Again, if the board directs me to advertise the part-time position, which is David's recommendation and my
Right.
recommendation, then I think that should be flexible to whoever the best candidate is for the part-time position.
Well, the
in
reason-
other words, if they can only work 20 hours, then I might recommend 20, but if they can work the 25, I would recommend the 25.
The reason I asked that, because the obvious question is, I'm not really sure with the union how they stand on that regarding, obviously an initiative of applying for the job for a good applicant would be the benefits package. And if you're, below 20, you can't get it. Is there some rule of thumb like that?
Yeah, I think probably the benefit, it's a good question. I think the benefits package probably would not apply because it would be, well, it might. I'm thinking 6 months probationary period, and I can ask David about this.
Yeah, you better, because when you advertise for it, you want to be able to say, including X, Y, and Z for,
I will.
Because it's only part-time, you try to draw a good applicant, you want to try to maybe have some benefits associated with it. But, that'll be, I'm sure it'll be black and white with what David says, how we have to proceed.
So as far as the computation to get to 92,822.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I use $25 per hour at 35 hours, because again, we're talking about my recommended full-time position for fiscal 2020.
Right.
Times 52.2 weeks, which is the schedule used for accounting purposes. So that rounds off to around $46,000. So this is 46 plus 46,822.
46 for the full-time, and you got Tammy on the side, so those two together would be 92?
Those two would be 92,822,
Give or take, right?
give or take.
Yeah.
Longevity is $300. That's a decrease because Donna is retiring and she received the bulk of the longevity, so that only represents my longevity at 300. Training remains the same at 850. Engineering services, map updates remains the same at 6,500. Recording fees remains the same at $250. Consultant services remains the same at $28,000. Web hosting is increased from $2,000 to $6,000, and that is for hosting the assessors maps online. Now that's probably a high-end estimate at this point. That may be refined as we go through the process. I don't have all of the numbers for.
But who made the decision to host the maps online? If we could save, put that money elsewhere, but we could talk about that.
Yeah.
But if we're looking to save, cut corners to get that money for the full-time clerk.
Well, the full-time's already in the budget.
No, I know, but I mean, if somebody argues about a certain budget increase or something, like with the odds last year, that was a point.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's been discussed for a couple of years now.
No, I understand that.
More
Just
than
that
once, so
we're going to slash
I put it in the
somewhere.
budget, and
Yeah.
the budget is a budget.
Yeah, that's right.
It's flexible.
Okay.
The postage remains at $1,300. The record preservation, I increased by $50 from $350 to $400, just assuming the cost might go up, and it's a small bump.
Sure.
The contractual services increased from $8,930 to $10,800, and that's directly from Patriot Property because they charge us for 2 licensing fees, and
Right.
they increase every year. So that's what Patriot
So the 10.8 includes the vendors, 2 license fees for the vendors.
contractual services.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. And then office supplies, 3,000. I don't know why I recommended that. That might be subject to change.
I would
It was
think so.
1,100 last year. That might be a typo. Travel remains the same at $750. Dues and meetings remains the same at $600. Equipment replacement is $1,000 more than town meeting approved, but that was cut $1,000 last year. My recommendation last year was $3,000. It's $3,000 this year, and as you can see for fiscal 17 and for fiscal 18.
Yeah, I see that like on the office supplies. It was when I looked next door, $179, 1,100. But you see for FY 18 actual, it was above the $3,000 on office supplies.
That's
So,
why.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why.
Yeah,
That's why. Because
you look at that year to date, and all of a sudden, wait, it's way out of whack. But yeah,
exactly. That's why. So that was probably cut too, but I don't recall that.
that's fine. Yeah.
So that's my presentation, and that also leaves open the discussion on my recommendation to backfill this position as a part-time position between now and, well, it'd be more like August 1st, although,
Yeah.
because the board, if it's approved by town meeting.
What's the on your 20 request? What's the grand sum?
It's not total there, Steve, and I apologize.
Is it how much higher than the previous year? Is it
Well, I'm looking at it most
10% maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at most of the line
Yeah.
items, they remain the same.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
That's doable.
Even the clerical services was 90,000. That's because it was Gene and Donna, so it decreased
Right.
last
Back in
fiscal
17.
year.
Yeah. Yeah.
When Tammy came on.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, good job with that, John.
I guess
Thank
I
you.
would ask that the board approve the budget recommendation so that this is due Friday. So
Okay.
I'd like to submit it to the town administrator.
All right. I'll make a motion that the board recommend favorably the budget that was the preliminary or proposed budget for FY 20 that was presented to us tonight. All those in favor? I'll second that.
Aye.
Okay. We need a roll call on that. This is to accept the budget as presented by John to the Board of Assessors. Assessor Bunker?
But I still have some questions on it that I can just talk to John later, just saying clarification for myself.
That's fine, yeah. Smith?
Yes.
McCarthy? Yes.
Thank you. So that brings us back to the part-time position. My recommendation for a part-time position. Does the board have any motions or any further discussion?
No,
I'd
well,
be in favor of it being full-time myself.
yeah, we can get to that in a second. Are you talking about outlining how to, going about posting it, or
Yes.
But he kind of laid it out that we, without the money in place, we have to, for now, for the rest of this year, advertise it as part-time with we'll have to word that, I'm not sure about how we're gonna do that it could be upgraded to a full-time pending, town meeting approval.
I think what I would do, Mr. Chairman, is when I receive applications, I can advise the applicant. In other words, I can receive phone calls, or if I would expect that would be the major mean of communication. In other words, anybody who might be interested in this position might call and ask some questions about the position.
But someone might just apply for it, so if you spell it out kind of what it is up front, you might, save somebody from applying for it, or save some time on your end or our end. In other words, we know it has to be part-time, with the money's,
Well, I'm just looking at, again, the posting that the town administrator's office prepared, and it says part-time senior clerk.
Yeah, okay.
Title senior clerk part-time.
Yeah, right. And with a provision that, in the job write-up, with a provision that.
Okay, so in the description of the part-time position, to include
Potentially.
a sentence that it could,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pending
Okay.
town meeting approval, nothing to do with the board really.
okay, so note this position.
Right. So anybody that comes in, when we get to that, if they can't accept the fact they can't go to full-time, then they wouldn't be considered,
Mhm.
I would think. Because you don't want to redo this in 4 months, 5, 6 months.
I'm just making a note of that, Cheryl, that this position might or could become a full-time position pending town meeting approval. And I will work with Linda in David's office to craft that.
Yes,
language.
yeah. Yeah, she's wearing 2 hats up there, right? The assistant administrator, town administrator, and human resource.
Human resources. So the salary is blank, and as David suggested, put in a hourly rate of,
Up to step 5 and whatever job, whatever, he said something like 20 to 20, I didn't get the exact sense.
$23.99 to $28.90. Oh, I'm sorry.
no.
$30.41.
What are you looking at here for the senior
Step 5 senior secretary to step 5 head administrative.
Okay, that'd be $23.99, and 5 on that would be $28.96.
30. Am I reading that wrong?
Wait, I'm sorry, did I read that? Senior secretary,
My
step
eyeglasses,
5.
$28.96. Did you hear that, Cheryl?
I did.
$23.99 to $28.96.
Could I just ask a question?
Absolutely.
Now,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm speaking to you.
No,
The chairman said
listen,
yes.
Speak away, believe me.
now the different rate and pay. Now, what did you say? Tammy gets $25 an hour
She's at 24,
as a full-time person. So
I think she's
going to go to 25.
I think she'll go to 25.52. I think
Right.
she's either 24.29 or 24.90.
But we're not going to pay the part-time person more than they pay Tammy, is that right?
Well, I think that's a possibility, Cheryl, but it would be based on the applicant. It may be the applicant is at $23.99. You could set the range at $22.06, which is step 5 secretary.
Well, all we're doing here, Cheryl, is we have a paper in front of us with the job titles, and Dave said that we couldn't start higher than a step 5 in any one of the categories. So we're just saying from step 5 from senior secretary, that's $23.99, up to the head administrative secretary, which is $28.96. Tammy is currently a principal secretary at step 5, and she'll go to $25.52. So it'll probably work out that somebody wouldn't start higher than that. In fact, it'd probably be lower. It's just that we have that, if lack of a better term, we have that leeway to put that in the posting to try to see what we get for applicants.
She brings up a good point, though. Maybe the board should start at 22.06, which is step
Right.
5 for secretary.
Sure.
And go from one end of the range to
Right.
the other. Sure.
That's fine.
Well,
Yeah, that is a good idea. So Cheryl, you are paying attention there. Good. Thank you.
So I think that's the only item that needs to be filled in on the job posting, and then the other item would be the description to include language about it. It could evolve into a.
Yeah, well, you can work on that.
pending
You know,
town meeting.
talk to Linda, or you know, whatever you want to do.
I
you know.
have the spirit of it.
Yeah.
So probably a motion would be in order, Mr. Chairman? To post it part-time with that salary range
Yeah.
and include in the job description language that it may become a full-time position pending approval of town meeting.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to get the job search underway by in-house posting of the position and where else we deem necessary, with the salary range from step 5 of a secretary at 2206 up to a step 5 at the bottom, the head administrative of 2896. We'll start it out because of the funding at part-time, and work on getting it to full-time through town meeting. And overseeing this will be John, working closely with our new human resource director, Linda Torres. You guys,
Yep, got the motion?
yeah, all those in favor on a roll call? Assessor Smith,
Yes.
Assessor Bunker,
Yes.
McCarthy, yes.
Okay, thank you. Continuing on the budget, just to let you know, the schedule for a meeting with the Finance Committee, the Selectmen, and the,
Oh, you have that already?
yeah.
Wonderful.
So let me find where you are.
I thought it was always like in March, wasn't it? No?
Yeah. So the board is scheduled to meet with the Board of Assessors is scheduled to meet with the Board of Selectmen on March 6th at 8:15.
Wait a minute, write that down. Selectmen,
Selectmen,
March,
6, 8:15.
okay, and the finance?
March 7th, the next day,
Yeah.
at 8:35.
Nice. Okay, thank you. Is that scheduled out earlier than other years? Because I don't remember hearing, in January before, but just curious.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's good, yeah, it's good staying on top of it. Yeah.
So that's all I have for the budget. Let's see what else. There's the main, so under my report and announcements and updates, the Maine Association of Assessing Officers will be holding its annual fall conference at Sabasco Harbor Resort on September 18th to September 20th, 2019. I have an agenda if you're interested in it.
No, I'm all set, thanks.
Okay, take care of that. You have the planning board minutes of November 7th, 2018 for your review, if you care to review.
All set there, thank you.
And I think that's all I have for announcements.
Okay,
I don't believe there's anything in your correspondence folder except for the minutes of the planning board meeting.
okay,
You have some warrants, some motor vehicle trailer boat excise abatement certificates or denials, motor vehicle trailer boat excise warrants, real and personal property tax exemption, I think probably just exemption applications. There may be some certificates in there.
Yeah, there was a few.
And monthly real estate personal property abatement exemption warrants. I don't believe there are any of those in your packet. There are some applications for chapter land classification for your signature also. And I have the minutes of the January 2nd, 2019 open session of the Board of Assessors. I sent this out to you,
Yeah.
I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago.
do you want me to sign this? Is that-
You need a motion, Mr. Chairman, to accept and approve the minutes of January 2nd, 2019.
I'll make a
This one
motion.
Already approved? I don't remember getting this one.
Yeah, I emailed it, Paula,
Oh, no, I'm not
Couple
saying
of-
you. I just
couple
say
of
I
weeks
don't remember
ago.
seeing that one.
a couple of weeks ago.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented by Mr. Donahue for the January 2nd, 2019 minutes. All those in favor?
So you need a second, Mr.
Oh.
Chairman.
I haven't read them, so I can't.
Do we get a second?
Yes, you did. You have to take a roll call, Mr.
All
Chairman.
those in favor of the roll call? Assessor Smith?
Yes.
Assessor Bunker?
I don't remember receiving them, so I haven't read them, so I can't say yes or no.
Abstention? Abstain?
That's to the chairman.
McCarthy, yes.
How do you want to record it, Mr. Chairman?
As approved.
2 in favor, 1 abstention, and,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, just note that I haven't had the opportunity to
Right.
read them. I don't remember receiving that
Yeah.
email.
Yeah, make a
I
note
was
of
just
that.
looking
Yeah.
for that, to see
That's
if I
fine.
missed it.
Okay, I will put that in the minutes of this meeting.
Yeah.
And that's all I have for open session, Mr. Chairman. I do have several applications for abatement. There are some pending appellate tax board cases that I would like to discuss strategy with you. So the applications for abatement would be relative to purpose 7.
Right.
And the strategy for appellate tax board cases would be purposes 3 and 7.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing what you just said. Okay. And I'll need a roll call on that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Assessor Smith?
Yes.
Bunker?
Yes?
McCarthy, yes.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, the motion should include and not to reconvene in open session.
Okay, and the motion will include not to reconvene an open session. I'll need a roll call on that, on the Shane's motion. Assessor Smith?
Yes.
Assessor Bunker?
Yes?
McCarthy, yes.